So it's from, but she's like the lowest of the low.
I'm going to say so very little. I would also like to extend my sincere thanks to Kat, and it's my joy to welcome Stephen Ray and Neil Martin.
Aeneid loosens out sail and gives the whole fleet its head. So now at last they ride ashore on the waves of Euboean Cumae. There they turn round the ships to face out to sea. Anchors bite deep, craft are held fast, curved sterns cushion on sand. Prows frill the beach. Now a band of young hobblers vaults quickly out onto the shore of Italia, some after flint for the seething fire it hides in its veins, some crashing through woodland thickets, the haunts of wild beasts, pointing amazed at new rivers. But Aeneid, devoted as ever, has taken the road up towards a fort, the high seat of Apollo, then onto a place apart, a vast, scaresome cavern, the Sibyl's deep hidden retreat. There, the god breathes into her, overwhelmingly, knowledge and vision, opening her eyes to the future. Before long, they pass through the golden precincts and groves of Diana, the goddess of crossroads. And now they pause on that hill where Daedalus, at the end of his flight, first fluttered to earth. He had risked himself to the sky, away and afloat to the north, through the cold air, unprecedented, rowing with wings, which he then dedicated to you, Phoebus Apollo, there on the spot where he landed, and built in your honor a mighty temple, the doors of it decorated with scenes in relief. First, the death of Androgeus, then the stricken Athenians, doomed to deliver 7 grown-up sons for sacrifice every year. There stood, too, the empty urn, from which only now the fatal lots had been drawn. On the opposite reef, the land of Knossos rising out of the sea. Here was the horned, cruel bull with Pasiphae under him, a congress, her cunning arranged. Whence would be born the Minotaur, crossbreed and offspring of abominable desire. Also shown the bewildering, intricate maze never got through until Daedalus, out of pity for infatuated Ariadne, guided a prince's blind footsteps with a payout of thread past every wrong turn and every dead end he himself had devised and construed. In which grand design you too would figure significantly, Icarus, had sorrow allowed him. Twice Daedalus tried to model your fall in bold. Twice his hands, the hands of a father, failed him. The Trojans would have kept standing, fascinated by all on display, except that just then Achates, who had been sent on ahead, came back accompanied by the Sibyl, Deiphobé, daughter of Glaucus, priestess of Diana and Phoebus, who addressed the prince. This is no time to be standing staring here. It would be better now to pick out for sacrifice 7 bullocks from a herd that has not been yoked, and an equal number of properly chosen yokes. Having spoken these words to Aeneid, whose men are quick to obey her instructions, the priestess summons the Trojans into her high inner sanctum. At Cumae, behind the broad cliff, an enormous cave has been quarried. 100 entrances, 100 wide open mouths lead in, and out of them scramble 100 echoing voices, the Sibyl's responses. They arrived at that threshold, and the Vestal cried, Now you must ask what your fate is. The god is here with us, Apollo. Her countenance suddenly pale and convulsed, hair got disheveled, breast was a heave, heart beating wilder and wilder. Before their eyes she grows tall. Something not mortal enters. She is changed by the breath of the god breathing through her. Aeneid of Troy, she demands, your vows and your prayers, why do you wait? Pray, for until you have prayed, the jaws of this cavern won't echo or open. And there she fell silent. The hardy Trojans feel a cold shiver go through them. Their prince from the depths of his heart beseeches the god. Phoebus, you always had pity for Troy and her troubles. It was you who steadied Paris's aim and directed the arrow into Achilles. You who were pilot as I entered sea after sea, skirting the coasts of distant land masses, remotest Massilia, the sand-backed Syrian gulfs. Here then, at last, we set foot on Italia that seemed for so long the unreachable. Henceforth, let Trojan ill fortune be a thing of the past. For now, all you gods and goddesses, you to whom Troy's name and fame gave affront, divine law constrains you to spare us, the last of its relics. And you, seeress most holy, to whom the future lies open, grant what I ask, no more in the end than my fate has assigned. Home ground for my people, in Latium, refuge for our wandering gods, and all Troy ever held sacred. Then to Phoebus, Apollo, and Diana I will set up a temple in solid marble and inaugurate feast days in the gods' honor. And for you, O all-gracious one, a sanctuary will be established, a vault where I shall preserve divinations from lots and oracles you have vouchsafed to my people. and in your service I shall ordain chosen men. Yet one thing I ask you, not to inscribe your visions in verse on the leaves in case they go frolicking off in the wind. Chant them yourself, I beseech you. So saying, Aeneid fell silent. Meanwhile, the Sibyl, resisting possession, storms through the cavern in the throes of her struggle with Phoebus Apollo. But the more she froths at the mouth and contorts, the more he controls her, commands her, and makes her his creature. Then, of their own accord, those 100 vast tunnel mouths gape and give vent to the prophetess's responses. Oh, you who survived in the end the sea's dangers, though worse still await on the land, you and your Trojans will come into your own in Lavinia. Have no fears of that. But the day is one you will rue. I see wars, atrocious wars, and the Tiber surging with blood. A second Simois River, a second Xanthus, a second enemy camp lie ahead, and already in Latium a second Achilles comes forth, he too the son of a goddess. Nor will Trojans ever be free of Juno's harassments, while you, without allies, dependent, will go through Italia, petitioning cities and peoples. And again, the cause of such pain and disaster for Trojans will be as before, a bride culled in a host country, an outlander groom. But whatever disasters befall, do not flinch. Go all the bolder to face them. Follow your fate to the limit. A road will open to safety from the last place you would expect. A city of Greeks. Thus from her innermost shrine, the Sibyl of Cumae chanted menacing riddles and made the cave echo with sayings where truths and enigmas were twined inextricably, while Apollo reigned in her spasms and curbed her or sank the spurs in her ribs. Then, as her fit passed away and her ravings went quiet, heroic Aeneas began. No ordeal, O Sibyl, no new test can dismay me, for I have foreseen and foresuffered all. But one thing I pray for especially, since here the gate opens, they say, to the king of the underworld's realms, and here in these shadowy marshes the Acheron floods to the surface, vouchsafe me one look, one face-to-face meeting with my dear father. Point out the road, open the holy doors wide. On these shoulders I bore him through flames and 1,000 enemy spears. In the thick of fighting I saved him, and he was at my side then on all my sea crossings, battling tempests and tides, a man in old age, worn out, not meant for duress. He too it was who half prayed and half ordered me to make this approach, to find and petition you. Wherefore, have pity, O most gracious one, on a son and a father, for you have the power, you whom Hecate named mistress of wooded Avernus. If Orpheus could call back the shade of a wife by trusting and tuning the strings of his Thracian lyre, if Pollux could win back a brother by taking the road repeatedly in and out of the land of the dead, if Theseus and Hercules too, but why speak of them? I myself am of highest birth, a descendant of Jove. He was praying like that and holding onto the altar when the Sibyl started to speak. Blood relation of gods, Trojan, son of Anchises, it's easy to descend into Avernus. Death's dark door stands open day and night. But to retrace your steps and get back to upper air, that is the task. That is the undertaking. Only a few have prevailed, sons of gods whom Jupiter favored, or heroes exalted to glory by their own worth. At the center, it is all forest and a ring of dark waters. The river Cocytus furls and flows round it. Still, if love so torments you, if your need to be ferried twice across the Styx and twice to explore that deep, dark abyss is so overwhelmed, if you will and must go that far, understand what else you must do. Hid in the thick of a tree is a golden bough, gold to the tips of its leaves and the base of its stem. Sacred, tradition declares, to the queen of that place. It is safe there, roofed in by forests in the pathless, shadowy valleys. No one is ever allowed down to earth's hidden places unless he has first plucked this sprout of fledged gold from its tree and handed it over to fair Proserpina, to whom it belongs by decree, her own special gift. And when it is plucked, a second one grows every time in its place, golden again, emanating that same sheen and shimmer. Therefore look up and search deep, and as soon as you find it, take hold of it boldly and duly. If fate has called you, the bough will come away in your hand. Otherwise, no strength you muster will break it, nor the hardest forged blade lop it off. But while you linger here on my doorstep, consulting and suing, sad news, alas, awaits. The body of one of your friends lies empty of life, and his death pollutes the whole fleet. Carry this man to a right resting place, lay him into his tomb, sacrifice herds of black sheep as your first votive offerings. Then, and then only, will you view the forests of Styx, those realms barred to the living. She said these things, pressed her lips shut, and went silent. Aeneas, his face sadder now, looking downcast, walked away from the cave, not sure what to think or expect. Trusty Achates walked at his side and stepped with his friend, apprehensive and tense, the give and take of their talk uncertain yet urgent. Who, for example, might be the dead comrade the Sibyl enjoined them to bury? And when they saw him, Seamus, on a dry stretch of beach, he came up and saw the son of Aeolus unfairly, peremptorily called to his death. This man, unsurpassed at rallying fighters, blaring the war call on his bronze trumpet. Once he had been great Hector's comrade, standing by him in battle, unmistakable, known by his trumpet and spear. Then, after Achilles had savaged Hector to death, this staunchest of heroes, unwilling to join a less worthy cause, chose to follow Aeneas. But a mad moment came when the trumpeter blew resonant notes from a conch shell over the waves, intending to challenge the gods to a musical contest. Triton was shaken with envy, hard as it is to desperately, and surged up and drowned him in a sudden backwash of foam. Trojans assembled and lifted their voices in mourning, none louder, more devout than Aeneid. Then, still in tears, they set to at once, eager to follow the Sibyl's instruction, piling up logs, building an altar pyre that rose toward the heavens. High in the virgin forest, near dens of wild beasts, holm oaks echo the crack of their axes. Spruce trees get felled, they hammer in wedges, split open beams of the ash and the tougher cross grain of oak. Big rowan trees crash and roll from the hilltop down. As all this proceeded, Aeneid was to the fore, geared out like the rest, cheering everyone on, but he kept gazing up at the high stretch of forest, sadly preoccupied, pondering things in his heart, until a prayer rose to his lips and he said, "If only that golden bough would show itself on its tree in the deep forest den, for everything the prophetess said about you, Maecenas, was true, altogether too true." And almost immediately a pair of doves chanced down from the sky in full view and settled on the green grass. In them the great hero knew his own mother's birds, and prayed and rejoiced. "Oh, if a way can be found, be you my guides. Hold course through the air. Lead on to the grove where the opulent bough overshadows the rich forest floor. And you, oh my goddess mother, do not abandon me in this time of confusion." With that, he halted to watch for what signs they might give, what place they might make for. But the doves kept on going, now feeding, now flying ahead, at all times staying in view of the eyes that pursued them. Then when they came to the fuming gorge at Avernus, they swept up through clear air and back down to their chosen perch, a tree that was two trees in one, green-leafed yet refulgent with gold, like mistletoe shining in cold winter woods, gripping its tree but not grafted, always in leaf, its yellowy berries in sprays curled round the bowl. Those flickering gold tendrils lit up the dark overhang of the oak and chimed in the breeze. There and then Aeneas took hold of the bough, and although it resisted, greedily tore it off, then carried it back to the Sibyl's cabin. The Trojans were mourning Maecenas as sorely as ever, paying their last respects to the inert ash. With resinous pine wood and cut-off sections of oak, they constructed first a huge pyre, dressing its flanks with branches darkly in leaf, fencing the base with funereal cypress, crowning all with resplendent armour and weapons. Some heated water in bubbling vats above open fires, washed and anointed the corpse, then raised the lament. Next, when the weeping was over, they laid him out on the ritual couch, his remains swathed in purple, familiar robes of the dead. Some stepped in to lift high the great bier. a grievous observance, and with eyes averted as ancestral custom required, touched a blazing torch to the base of the pyre. Gifts of food, piled offerings, incense, and bowls brimming over with oil went up in the flames. Then, when the fire had died, collapsing to ash, they poured wine on his parts to dust, and Corineus collected the bones in a bronze urn and sealed them. 3 times he moved round the company, sprinkling clean water for purification, asperging men lightly from an olive branch, dewy with promise, then gave the farewell. And under a high, airy hill, Aeneas reared a magnificent tomb, hung with the dead man's equipment, his oar and his trumpet, so the hill is now called Maecenas, a name that will live down the ages. Once this was done, Aeneas quickly proceeded to follow the Sibyl's instructions. There was a cave, a deep, rough-walled cleft, stone jaws agape above a dark lake, with a lake and a grove for protection and shelter. No creature of air could wing its way safely over that water. Such were the noxious fumes spewing up from the murky chasm into the vault of the heavens. The Greeks therefore called it Avernus, place without words. The first thing the priestess did here was line up 4 black heifers, pour libations of wine on their foreheads, clip off the bristles that sprouted between their horns, and commence sacrifice, offering them on the flames, all the while praying her glamorous prayers to Hecate, she who has power under the earth and above it. Others draw blades, catching warm blood in vessels. Aeneas himself, with the stroke of the sword, to honor dark night and her sister the earth, slays a black-fleeced lamb, and to honor you, Proserpina, a heifer infertile. Then for the king of the underworld, he illumines the dark, consecrating an altar where he burns whole carcasses and pours sluggish oil on the glowing entrails of bulls. But all of a sudden, between the first glimmer and full rise of the sun, the ground at their feet starts rumbling and shaking. The wooded heights are a tremble, and in the uncanny light, what they hear sounds like the howling of dogs as Hecate approaches. "Out from here!" the seeress is shouting. "Out! Anyone here not initiate? All such depart from the grove, but not you, Aeneas. Take you the sword from your scabbard. Go ahead on the road. Now will spirit be tested. Now your courage must hold." So saying, rapt and unstoppable, she hurled herself into the mouth of the wide-open cave, and he, without fear, kept in step as she guided him forward. Gods who rule over souls, shades who subsist in the silence, chaos and phlegethon, all you hushed nocturnal expanses, let assent be forthcoming as I tell what's been given to tell. Let assent be divine as I unveil things profoundly beyond us, mysteries and truths buried under the earth. On they went then in darkness, through the lonely shadowing night, and nowhere of deserted dwellings, dim phantasmal reaches where Pluto is king. Like following a forest path by the hovering light of a moon that clouds and unclouds at Jupiter's whim, while the colours of the world pall in the gloom. In front of the house of the dead, between its dread jams, is a courtyard where pain and self-wounding thoughts have ensconced themselves. Here too are pallid diseases, the sorrows of age, hunger that drives men to crime, agonies of the mind, poverty that demeans. All of these haunting nightmares have their beds in the niches. Death too, and sleep, the brother of death, and terror, and guilty pleasures that memory battens on. Also close by that doorway, the iron cells of the Furies, death dealing war and fanatical violence, her viper tresses astream in a blood-stained tangle of ribbons. Right in the middle stands an elm, copious, darkly aflutter, old branches spread wide like arms, and here it is said, false streams come to roost, clinging together on the undersides of the leaves. At the gates, monstrosities brood in their pens, bewildering beasts of every form and description. Two-natured centaurs and scyllas, 100-headed briarios, the beast of Lerna, loathsome and hissing, and fire-fanged chimera, gorgons and harpies too, and the looming menace of triple-framed Geryon. Faced with this rout, Aeneas is thrown into panic, pulls out his sword, swings it round in defence, and had not his guide in her wisdom forewarned him that these were lives without substance, phantoms, apparitional forms, he would have charged and tried to draw blood from shadows. A road starts here that leads to Acheron River. Here too is the roiling abyss, heaving with mud, venting a silty upsurge into Cocytus. And beside these flowing streams and flooded wastes, a ferryman keeps watch, surly, filthy, and bedraggled Charon. His chin is bearded with unclean white shag. The eyes stand in his head and glow. A grimy cloak flaps out from a knot tied at the shoulder. All by himself he poles the boat, hoists sail, and ferries dead souls in his rusted craft. Old, but still a god. And in a god, old age is green and hardy.